Coming to you direct from Silencer Shop Studios, home of the Glass Case of Emotion.
SilencerShop.com, the easiest way to buy silencers online, period.
Stand by for education, enlightenment, enjoyment, and entertainment.
He's not here to talk about your feelings. He's not here to say what you want to hear. He's here to say what needs to be said.
Ladies and gentlemen, and children of all ages, please welcome your host, the pimp hand of America, Professor Paul Markle.
All right, kids, are we ready to continue? Are you ready to listen to episode number 600? That's right, 600. Student of the Gun Radio. You are? Well, good. Then I'm ready to talk then, I guess. Yes, indeed. It is Wednesday. We're at 600. These centennial anniversaries come up pretty quickly, don't they? Have you noticed that?
They do.
It seems like we were just doing episode 500 recently. Well, all right, it wasn't recently. It was last year, but still. Was it last year? Or was it this year? Let me see.
Well, we do 16 a month, so yeah.
That is true. That is true. So here we are, and we're not doing any kind of big fanfare or anything. It's just episode number 600, and we're moving on with our lives. But we've got a fighting fitness for you today, brought to you by SWAT Fuel. And before we get into that, I wanted to take a moment, and I didn't even put this in the show notes, Jarrad, but I'm going to do it anyway. One of our graduates from the Beyond the Band-Aid training class, a woman named Angel, had to use the skill that she learned at the Beyond the Band-Aid training class to save someone's life here last week. And I applaud her for keeping a cool head and applying the skill that she needed to do that. And she saved someone's life, someone who probably would have died before emergency response got there to get them to the hospital, instead didn't die and made it to the hospital alive. And that's kind of, if you talk to our friend Dr. Dan, he goes, that's what we really prefer. We really prefer that you take steps to get them to the emergency room alive. He goes, we can fix most things, but if they don't make it to the ER alive, there's really not much we can do for them. So congratulations. And, it's one of those, and actually it was 1 year ago last week that we did our Beyond the Band-Aid class. We did a grad program exclusive Beyond the Band-Aid class. The class was filled with grad program members, and so congratulations to Angel. And we, it's one of those things that's like, I was talking to somebody about emergency kits and what have you, and they're like, well, it's so easy to say, I'll probably never use it, right? I'll probably never use it. It's kind of like, I'll probably never use my gun. Are you carrying one or aren't you? I don't know. You could walk out the door. Very rarely do we have someone that has to use their skill immediately. But I've had a few students. I've trained a lot of students. And I've had some who contacted me and within a week or two of taking a class had to put their training into action. So you never know. We did, remember it was about 2 years ago, we did the Force Options 1-day class and then the Beyond the Band-Aid 2-day class back to back. And we had somebody that went back to their hotel room and the next morning had to use their Force Options training in the parking lot of the hotel. Yep. So you just never know.
Luckily, you won't have to do that here.
Yeah.
It's less likely than in
it's but
there's a lot less people.
Beyond the Band-Aid, man. I was talking to the guys at Big and Wild on the radio, and we were talking about, and I mentioned that. I said, because when I was on the radio with them, I had just gotten the message that she had used the skill. And they were talking about being out here and how long it would take. It's beautiful, it's gorgeous, it's God's country, but if red stuff starts pumping out of your body, it's going to be a long time before somebody gets to you. Yeah, well, not that they don't want to. It's just physically not possible. And you have to be able to do something while you're waiting for the air ambulance or whatever.
Yeah. And if you want to be a good Samaritan like we talked about, then you would have the knowledge and also the gear on you to use the knowledge.
Exactly. And folks say, well, well, what are you supposed to do? You're a smart guy. You always talk about, carrying a gun or you're going to shoot. What if there's a bombing or what if it's a truck attack or well, if it's a truck attack, you can shoot the driver. But if it's a bombing, you're like, okay, you got me there. You can't shoot the bomb into not exploding. But what are you going to do? Are you just going to stand around with a cell phone in your hand like every other mongoloid in America and shoot video? Or are you going to step in and do something positive? It's up to you, man. It's up to you. Live your life like you want to, but just understand this. The reason that you don't have the training and the gear to save a life right now is not because the gear's not available. It's not because it's expensive. It's not because the training isn't available, and it's not because it's expensive. The reason that you don't have, if you're sitting out there listening to the sound of my voice right now, and you don't have the skill and gear necessary to stop someone from dying, to stopgap a life-threatening injury while you're waiting for the box full of, with the shiny lights on it, while you're waiting for that to show up, the only reason that is because you've decided not to do it, because you've decided that that's not a priority in your life and it's not important and you don't want to. It's not because it's not available. It's not because you couldn't do it. It's because, what did Geddy Lee say? If you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. That's right. You exercised the free will not to be prepared. And you can do that. You absolutely can. So, that's all I'm going to say about that, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to the original King Julian and let him rock your socks off. How's that sound?
Well, before I get too far into today's topic, I am going to be talking about, in reference to strength training, since we've been talking about that a lot lately, about how taking time off can affect your progress. And I'm actually going to split this into two segments. So next week I'll be talking about something called deloading. But what you want to do is you obviously want to save some money on your SWAT fuel. If you're going to order it anyway, you might as well just go use the promo code SOTG2015. You can save yourself some money at SWATfuelstore.com. Now, I personally had an experience recently with weight training, and between the move and getting all this stuff set up, I didn't really have a lot of time to do weight training, strength training like I had been. It takes about 2 hours for me, Alex and I, to complete our weight training circuit. So I didn't have a lot of time to do the strength training, so I just chose to do smaller workouts that would take like maybe 10, 15 minutes max. And we got to our home, and we found a gym that had what we needed, the squat rack, the deadlift area, and everything. And I went back to strength training for the first time in, it had probably been a good 30 days since I had done an actual 2-hour workout with strength training stuff. And I completed the sets, but I did lose quite a significant amount of weight. My squats stayed about the same, but I squatted the same weight, but it took me about 4 days to recover and then be able to go back to the gym. So I probably overdid it. I should have put less weight on there. The bench, I lost about 20 pounds on my bench, and that's a lot in 30 days. That's a lot for me. And I'm hoping that next time I go back, maybe I'll be able to go back up to the weight that I was before. Maybe it just takes one time for my muscles to remember that they need to lift heavier. I don't know. But it was kind of a gut check. I was like, man, because I put the weight that I had done before on the bench, and Alex was my spotter. And we did she helped me lift it off the bar, and I got it to where it needed to be. And then I slowly lowered it to my chest, and I couldn't get it back up. And I was like, what? I did this. This was my working weight, 3 sets of 5 30 days ago, and I can't even do it one time now. So I ended up having to take 20 pounds off the bar to even be able to finish my working weight sets. And that was a huge gut check for me. I didn't realize that taking that much time off of the strength training would have that big of an impact. Now, deadlift, I did, since when I took that class in January, I did learn from Matt that the way to get stronger is to add more weight and do less reps. So with the deadlift, instead of removing a bunch of weight, I kept it about the same, but I was only able to do it once or twice. Once with the working weight that I had before, and then I had to remove a little bit of weight to do it a second time. But I did keep the weight up there, and I did less reps. And hopefully when I go back next time, I'll be able to go back to what I was doing. So I'll report on that next time. Next week, along with the deloading topic, I just realized, I think 2 days ago, that I've not talked about deloading yet. And that's actually a really important part of strength training because your muscles need to recover at some point in time.
There you go. All right, kids, that is your SWAT Fuel Fighting Fitness segment for the day. And what do I have to add to that? The answer is nothing. All right. Let's thank our friends from Crossbreed Holsters, makers of the Super Tuck Deluxe. Yes, and in addition to the Super Tuck Deluxe, they also make the Freedom Carry, and they make the Bedside Backup, and they make the Purse Defender, and they make all kinds of things to help you be an armed citizen. I know, it's a crazy concept, right? Go to crossbreedholsters.com. Frog Lube, it's green, it's minty fresh. It is a bio-based firearms lubricant, and you can get Frog Lube products from Brownells or from froglube.com or anywhere you want to. Just go crazy. It is extreme. Yes, it is. Century Arms, the sweetest smelling arms maker in the U.S. of A. Makers of the C39 V2, V2 rifle, V2 pistol, the C39 RPK. If you can get your hot little hands on one of those, I highly recommend it. If you are a free American and you live in free America, I think that you should do that. Every team should have at least one of those on the team. And last but not least, in this current hit parade is Duracoat. Why? Because life is too short to have an ugly gun. Beginning and end of sentence. Now, you can get Duracoat products from them at lauerweaponry.com, or you can get Duracoat products from Brownells.com, or you can get it from anywhere you want to. Just get it. And really, slightly darker black. You can get white. You can get black. You can get olive drab. You can get bronze. You can go crazy. You get blue. Now, I want to make sure that you guys know that, right? You guys understand that they make a Dura-Blue product. All of you traditionalists out there, all of you guys are like, I don't like these colors on my guns. Deep blue like it was meant to be. Okay, you can do that too. They got you covered. So what's your excuse now? Exactly, you're fresh out of excuses. All right, so check them out at lauerweaponry.com.
Attention, new listeners. We produced a free training video series called 7 Training Tips That Could Save Your Life. We want you to have access to this life-saving information. Get instant access now at studentofthegun.com. Do you watch Student of the Gun TV, read the blog, and follow us on Facebook? If you answered no to any of those questions, you are wrong, but you can easily fix yourself. Go to studentofthegun.com to find everything SOTG.
I like to teach you all the rules. I get to see them set in stone. I like it when you chain me to the bed, but then you see it's never shown.
Yes, indeed. That's Control from Puddle of Mud. And that's what slave states are all about, man. They're all about controlling you, what you think, what you say, what you own, what you do. It's all about control. Now, this story, it's not really that earth-shattering, but it makes a point. It drives my point home. We've been making this point for years, quite literally, not figuratively, but literally for years. I've been coming to this black carbon steel microphone, and I've been reminding you, all of you folks out there, some of you who think that you can be reasonable and we can be practical and we just need to accept certain limitations. Because once we accept those certain limitations, once we prove to the other side that we are reasonable, well, then they'll have had enough and they will leave us alone, right? Wrong. Well, here's another one. New York lawmakers push bill requiring child-proof triggers on guns. And this is a story from guns.com, and it was dated 5/24/17. A group of Democrats, surprise, shock face, in the state Senate, and this is the New York State Senate, are backing a measure that would prohibit the sale of guns in New York State without child-proof features. Now, what child-proof features do they want to put on the guns? The bill, S344, would make it illegal to sell or transfer handguns 1 year after its passage unless the firearm was designed to where get this, a 5-year-old could not pull the trigger. What 5-year-old? Which 5-year-old? Your 5-year-old? My 5-year-old? 5-year-old girl? 5-year-old boy? How do you even measure that? Do you get like a sample group? Because you know that human beings are all built a little bit differently, right? You understand that some 5-year-olds are larger than other 5-year-olds. Some 5-year-olds have more dexterity than other 5-year-olds. Oh, supporters think the move is needed to prevent accidental shootings. Oh, here we go. We got a quote from a Democrat liberal scumbag, a liberal fascist here. There is no reason that a young child 5 years old should be able to have access to a weapon that he or she could fire, said the bill sponsor, Senator Jose Serrano. So we need to make sure that all weapons sold in the state of New York are not fireable by children this young. Hang on a second. Hey, Jose, didn't you and your liberal cohorts, your liberal fascist cohorts, not Nanny Bloomberg, who's that other scumbag, Kumo, didn't you and your cohorts up there in the People's Republic of New York, didn't you all get together a few years ago and slam this thing called the SAFE Act down people's throats? Didn't you do that? You're like, it's an emergency. Emergency legislation coming through. Emergency legislation. We don't have time for open debate. We don't have time to pause and consider it. It's an emergency. So you and your scumbag liberal cohorts, you slammed the SAFE Act down the throats of the people of New York State, right? Why? Jarrad, why? Because of whom? For the
people, for the safety of the children.
The children. If you don't approve of more gun control, you hate children. Why do you hate children? If you love children, you'd let us do whatever we want. The SAFE Act. We were told that the SAFE Act was going to make everyone in New York safer. It was going to, for the children. Because of Sandy Hook. Because if we only disarm more law-abiding people, then bad people will never get guns. Well, except that they do, but we don't deal with reality here. We deal with wishes and dreams and hope. So Jose and his cohorts think that they need to regulate not only how the gun looks and how many rounds it can hold and whether or not it has the foldy thing that comes up to your shoulder and the other thing that sticks down and the thing out on the front, the flash suppressy thing and the bayonet lug and the grenade launcher and all that. That's not enough. Now we need to make sure that, well, how is he going to do this? How is Jose going to do this? Well, here we go. Jose's legislation would require that all handguns sold in the state be child-proofed. Suggestions in the bill's language on how to accomplish this mandate including adjusting the trigger pull to at least 10 pounds, changing the mechanism to where a child's hands are too small to operate the gun, or requiring a series of multiple motions to so we'll just make it like a combination lock kind of a thing. Here we go. Those found guilty of violating the measure, should it become a law, would face a Class A misdemeanor with up to a year in prison and a fine of $1,000.
I have an idea of how to fix this. You make it so that they have to tilt the gun to the side and then shoot it like they're from the west side or the east side.
Like,
and then that'll solve
90-degree angle there.
the multiple motions.
You pick it up, turn it, shake it, rattle it around a little bit.
Yeah, it's like a bop it, but for pistols.
Well, and something that the citizens who walk around the streets of New York City are super safe from errant gunfire because the New York trigger. Because, in New York, the cops, in order to prevent negligent discharges, we have to put super heavy triggers on them. Yep. So now, is this going to become law in the glorious People's Republic of New York? I don't know. The SAFE Act did. And now, Jarrad, is the SAFE Act the 2013 New York SAFE Act, which includes guidance and safe storage mandates? So they already have mandated that gun owners must keep their guns out of the hands of children, and if a child gets a hold of your gun and there's a negligent discharge, then you become a felon, and we're going to take your gun rights away. And Jarrad, don't riddle me this. I might be crazy, but in the People's Republic of New York, don't you have to get a permission slip from the state to buy a handgun?
Yep.
That's not enough gun control for them? And the answer, ladies and gentlemen, is no. The answer is as long as you peasants continue to possess firearms, you have people like Jose and his other liberal fascist cohorts who are going to come up with new and different ways to try and disarm you. Because, well, what did we learn? And I know, just as sure as God made little green apples, that there are some people in the state of New York, after the passage of the SAFE Act, which is going to make everyone safer, after that happened, they're like, well, it sucks and all, and it's not good, but at least now that they've gotten their gun control, they'll leave us alone. I know you reasonable people out there. I know that's what you're thinking. Well, it's not good, and I don't approve of it, but at least now they got it out of their systems. No, they didn't. They never will. Until you have been completely and totally disarmed. You mean like England? Yeah, like England. And when they got all the guns out of the hands of the peasants, they didn't even stop there. Then they moved on to knife control. Jarrad, isn't it the New York State Senate or the New York State House, that guy who came up with the machete ban? That was New York. Yeah. Was it good enough to have gun control? We gotta stop people. There's no reason why people should have these fantasy swords and knives and think we need to come up with machete control laws. Because you understand, the peasant can't be trusted. It's all about control, ladies and gentlemen. 100%, absolutely, positively. It's all about control. Controlling what you say, what you do, and what you think. And it's not going to stop until you reach down and find your collective testicles and tell people like Jose that you've had enough. But apparently, you haven't had enough yet. All right, I'm going to sip some water while Jarrad cues up the Brownells Bullet Points music. I thought you said it was going to be music, Paul. It is. That was music to my ears. Is it not music to your ears?
That was definitely music to my ears.
All right, freaks and freakettes. It is time for the Brownells Bullet Points segment, and today we're going to talk about rifle scopes. Yes, indeed we are, and I made sure that I left myself plenty of time to do it, because when it comes to magnified optics, I believe that there's a tremendous amount of misinformation and confusion out there in the world. Okay? Step number one, a magnified optic or a rifle scope does not make you a better shooter. What? But how many times have you either done it yourself or been privy to a conversation where someone's like, this gun's not accurate enough. I need a bigger scope. You go, what? And I know all the guys out there who work in and around gun shops and so forth are dying right now because you've heard that. I've heard that. Yeah, this rifle's not accurate enough. I need a more powerful scope. Hey, Sparky, the rifle, when you're talking about accuracy, what do you mean? Because by the rifle doesn't know. Zach or Jared, I'm sorry. It's almost like people believe like, well, if I take this scope and I screw it onto the rifle will know. It will realize that I have attached a magnified optic to it, and the rifle will make itself more accurate. Do you guys understand that the ability to produce consistent and reliable groups based upon the rifling and the design and the bolt and the action and all that once the gun leaves the factory and you take it out of the box, putting a new scope on it is not going to make it more accurate. You're like, well, it's kind of like I need a new trigger to make the gun more accurate. Actually, no. The trigger doesn't make the gun more accurate. And the dirty little secret is that in today's world, the barrel manufacturers, the gun makers who make barrels, who make rifled barrels for guns, for your bolt guns and all that, the technology is so advanced and it's so precise that they can turn out rifle barrels that are as close to being exact copies to each other as humanly possible as we've been able to achieve. So you're like, all right, well, smart guy, then why do I need a bigger scope? Chances are you don't. Chances are you don't need a bigger scope. Now, the reason that we put a magnified optic on a rifle is so that we can more readily identify our target. Yes, indeed. Because the naked eye can't see all the way out there. For instance, if you are a hunter and you are only allowed to take a moose or an elk with a certain spread or a certain number of, I can't even factor how people do that today. They're like, well, you can shoot a moose, but it has to be a blankety blank spread, and it's got to be a blankety blank this, and if its antlers are not that big, like I'm looking at an animal that's 247 yards away, and you expect me to like calculate in my head that's not a 50-inch spread, it's a derp. Or a male versus a female. Like in many states, you're only allowed to shoot the male version of the species, or depending on the time of year it is, you can no longer shoot the male version. You have to shoot the female version, such as when they cull does up in the Northeast and so forth. So how do you figure that out? How do you determine that? Well, you need some kind of magnification, right? Well, the problem that people have is they over-magnify their rifles, and over-magnification does two things. Number one, the more magnification you put on the gun, the greater the appearance of movement in the scope. Now, the scope isn't making the gun move. The gun's always been moving. How many of you guys ever picked up a pistol with a laser sight on it for the very first time, and you punch it out, and you're pointing it at the target, and that laser dot's just going, it's moving all over the place, and you're like, wow, the gun seems to be moving a lot with this laser on it. Well, the gun's always been moving like that. You just didn't realize it. You didn't perceive the movement until you put that laser dot on there and you see it moving all around. You realize that, yeah, the gun, you're not holding the gun steady. It's moving a lot. Same exact thing with rifles. You hold a rifle with iron sights, you kind of, look down there and it doesn't seem like it's moving at all. You put a 15, 20 power scope on it and there's all kinds of movement in the scope. You're like, holy crap, this thing's moving all over the place. Yeah, it's always been, you just could not perceive it. So the perceived movement in the scope is tremendously magnified the higher. And also, in addition to that, there's this crazy little thing called mirage. Jarrad, when we were out the other day, and you have an adjustable variable power scope, and that scope on that rifle of yours, the 260 Remington, how far up can you tune that thing?
30.
Really?
Yeah, it's 30 power.
Sweet Buddha. Now, when we were shooting long distance, were you getting mirage issues? Did you?
Not really that day.
Not really that day?
Mm-mm. Actually, it happened more when I was shooting up from the bench than it did when I was laying on the ground, which is odd.
So you have to tone down the magnification. And now, something else that people will do, and also the greater the magnification on the object, you also reduce your total field of view. I know, it's just crazy talk. So what do you really need power-wise when it comes to a rifle scope? Well, what you need to ask yourself is, how far am I going to be shooting? Really, seriously, like from a realistic, this is a gut check. I mean, everybody thinks they're going, I'll get this thing and I'm going to shoot 1,000 yards with it, but are you really? I mean, do you even have the ability to shoot beyond 100 yards where you live? Or 200? Or 300? Let's face it, ranges that have areas where you can shoot beyond 200 yards are pretty few and far between. If you can find one that goes beyond 200, that's a pretty good deal. 3, 4 is a lot. 5 is a huge amount. Anything beyond that is like you can count it on your fingers, the number. So how far do you actually legitimately expect to be shooting? If you're going to climb up into a tree or a tree stand or whatever, a blind, and you're expecting to pop a cap on Bambi at 75 or 80 yards, brothers and sisters, you don't need a variable 3 to 15 scope to shoot Bambi at 75 yards. You don't. Or Bambi's dad or Bambi's mom, whatever you want to shoot. The fact of the matter is, you could probably do with a 1.5 to 5 power scope or a 1 to 4 power scope. You're like, 1 to 4? I couldn't hit anything. Bro, 75 yards? I know guys who have 30-06 rifles with freaking 12 power scopes. They sit up in trees and they shoot Bambi at 60 yards. And you can do that if you want, but I'm telling you, you don't need it. And it's not something that's really helping you. Now, do you legitimately need to shoot long distance? And you're like, yes, I do. I want to shoot 300, 400, 500 yards. I want to shoot out to 1,000 yards or even more. Well, then what you're going to need is you're going to need the ability to adjust. Hopefully you're going to have target turrets or external turrets where you can make that adjustment. And you're also going to want to have enough magnification so that you can clearly identify your target. Now, there's something else that goes into not only identifying the target, but being able, when it comes to distance shooting, to spot your own hits. Yes, that is something else. That's one of the reasons why, like when I go out to the range, if I want to shoot beyond 5, I really need to take somebody with me to spot for me. And I could probably get away with spotting myself out to 600 yards, but that's really pushing it. I definitely can't spot myself out to 8, and I cannot spot myself out to 1,000. You want somebody that has a spotting scope, or probably just a spotting scope, or an additional rifle scope that's powerful enough that you can see the impacts of the bullets and read whether they're high, low, right, left, what have you, and make shot adjustments and calls. Now, if you do have enough scope and you have a proper shooting position, it is possible to call your own hits or to make your own adjustments, but it's not easy, and it's something that you need to work with. Now, when we're going to be doing our precision rifle class, and we filled up the first class pretty fast. We want to do a public class for everybody who's in the sound of my voice here. Everyone who's listening, I would love for you to come up here to Wyoming with us. And the reason that I decided to choose this topic today is because we got a lot of questions about what do I need? Do I need it? And I said, you need a magnified optic. You need something. Do you have to have a 3x15 or, a 3.5 to 20 or one of the, a really big scope? No, you don't. You can get away with a 10 power. You can get away with a fixed power. You don't have to even have a variable power scope. But I would say at least 3+, 4+, because you need to be able to see the target. You need to be able to do hold-offs or dial in. And you need to be able to help your other shooters, because one of the tricks that we do, is rather than using a spotting scope, you just have shooters use their scopes to spot other shooters' hits. I know, it's kind of crazy, right? It's like you already have a magnified optic on your gun. Just lay there, don't fire a shot, watch your partner shoot, and see where it goes.
I think for the newer listeners in the audience, you should explain what you meant by 3x15.
Oh, variable power. A variable power from three times magnification to 15 times magnification.
Okay, so like if you see something, can you give them some other examples of maybe something that's common that they would see?
3x9 is pretty common. 2 to 10 is pretty common. 4 to 12 is pretty common. There's so many optics out there today. And also, we get this question, and I've gotten it before, and people say, how much should I spend on a rifle scope? Because I've been shopping, Paul, and some of those things are expensive. Yes, some of them are. What do you hope and plan to do with that gun? Do you hope and plan to put each shot on target? Well, yeah, of course I do. Well, are you serious about it? Because if you're just going to slap a scope on a gun with a 30-round magazine and just blast away until one of those rounds out of the 30 eventually accidentally hits your target, then you don't need an expensive scope to do that. But if you want to put each and every shot on the target where it needs to be, the truth of the matter is a good quality optic will cost about as much as the gun. What? That's crazy talk. Well, no, it's not really crazy talk. It's how serious are you about it? And you're like, well, and when it comes to a quality optic, it's not just the glass and it's not just the scope. It's a combination of things. How it was manufactured. Is it going to be weather resistant? Will you be able to take it from the warmth of your car and truck out to -10, 0, whatever? Is the weather going to affect it? Are you going to be able to shoot it in humidity? Does it have anti-fogging lenses? Are the lens coatings proper? And do you get flaring on the lenses? I mean, there's a lot of manufacturers spend a lot of money on lenses and assembly. Leupold, Trijicon, Bushnell, and then there's lots of others out there who make high-end rifle scopes. Who's Jacob work for now?
Somebody.
He works for Swarovski? No. Schmittenbender? I think he works for Schmittenbender now. Schmittenbender, Swarovski. Quality optics. Remember we talked about binoculars, about binos, and about how, if you your whole life have been using your hunting binos that you keep in your bag are the ones that you spent $39 for at Walmart, and you think that they're good, and then one day you go out and your buddy loans you a pair of his Leica or Leupold or Swarovski ones that he spent $300 or $400 for. You look through them and you're like, oh, it's like seeing for the first time. And you can't even go back to those cheap, crappy ones that are all blurry and the lenses are crap. because you look through it for the first time. And the same thing with a rifle scope. If all you've ever done is put the Chinese knockoff crap scopes on your rifle, and then you get behind a rifle that has a quality scope on it, it's like seeing for the first time. You're like, wow, how have I lived without this? So when it comes to rifle scopes, you need to ask yourself, before you get that credit card out of your wallet and go to Amazon and buy something, you need to ask yourself, or Brownells, buy them from Brownells, don't buy them from Amazon. But you need to ask yourself, what do I expect to do with this rifle? Am I going to shoot out to 200 yards total? And you say to yourself, it's a gut check. You say, yeah, I'll never shoot beyond 100, 150 yards, 200 yards with this. Okay, great. Then what you need is a quality optic that is somewhere in the 3 to 9 power, and you'll be good to go. I guarantee it. Now, if you say, hey, I'm going to take up long distance shooting, or I'm going to go out and I want to be able to pop the head off of a prairie dog at 427 yards, okay, then you need more power, and you need variable power. If you want to be able to do matches, you're going to need to have scope knobs, adjustable scope knobs. If you're going to put a hunting rifle on, you're going to zero your gun at 100 or 200 and never change it, then you don't need external knobs. Don't pay for them. Don't pay the extra money for external knobs if you're going to zero your gun at 100 and leave it there. You're just paying for something you don't need. So there's a lot of things to think about in rifle scopes. I hope that I helped you today. I hope I helped you maybe make a decision and save a little bit of money. I don't want you spending money that you don't have to spend. I want you to put your money somewhere where it's going to benefit you. Yeah. All right, tomorrow, episode 601, we're moving into the 600s. Homeowner confronts not 1, not 2, not 3, but 5 thugs during a break-in. All the reasonable people. Why would you ever want to have more than a few rounds? Remember Mr. Gun Shop guy? Well, if you can't get it done with the first couple of rounds, you probably won't be able to get it done. What if I'm at home and 5 vermin break into my house? Mr. Gun Shop guy, who I only need a couple rounds. What do I do then? Tell him to share? So we'll dig into that mañana, and then we will have a Student of the Gun homeroom and more goodness that is Student of the Gun. Until then, remember, you're a beginner once, a student for life.